Hey, this is Zev. Thank you for joining the Entrepreneur Next Door podcast. My guests are successful, down-to-earth entrepreneurs and marketing professionals. They share their journey from tough beginnings to failures and their current success. I promise you that you will never hear any self-promotion on my part or my guests. Listen for a relaxed, intimate hour of entrepreneurial storytelling and lessons we can all learn from. And now, let's get on with the show. Okay, welcome to the Entrepreneur Next Door. And it's my pleasure to welcome Anita Toth to the podcast. Anita, I've got a ton of stuff to ask you, but why don't we start with the 30-second elevator pitch? Who the heck are you?
Okay. Well, my name's Anita Toth. I call myself a chief churn crusher. So I work with B2B SaaS companies, software as a service, helping them retain their customers longer by finding out what their customers truly think and feel about their company.
All right. Perfect. And you're Canadian. And if somebody will detect some of the special Canadian accents like you just did out, then it's cute. It's a beautiful thing. All right. So I know some of the answers to my regular questions, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So we're going to roll back to your teenage years or when you were 6. Whenever somebody asked you, Anita, what do you want to be when you grow up? What was it?
You know what? I think I was a teenager. I don't know. I could have been 14, 15. They had you do all these aptitude tests in high school. And one of them came out, I should be a landscape architect. Okay, I'm not particularly creative in any way. And so for the longest time, because this test told me that that would be a good fit for me, that's what I should be doing. So I thought I wanted to be a landscape architect for quite a while.
Okay. And so you finish high school, then what happened?
So I finished high school. I was telling my kids this the other day. When I was in grade 8, I won the geography award for grade 8. And then all through high school, I took geography. I take a first year of university. Computer science, psychology, sociology, a bunch of courses. And I decided to take one geography course. And I was like, you know what? I really like geography. So I actually transferred universities and I was going through their massive arts and science calendar. This is back in the old days when it was still a book. And I was flipping through and I was like, I want to do my first and second year concurrently. I don't want to take an extra year of university. And the only program I could find in this massive book was geography. And I was like, okay. So that's what I went into. And I got interested in a sub-discipline called medical geography. And that's what I studied. And actually, that's what I've built my career on.
And I saw that on your profile that your undergrad was geography and philosophy. Mm-hmm. And then you got a master's in medical geography. So you finish college and then what? Do you actually, is this a field? Well, geography obviously is a discipline, but did you actually work?
I did.
So what did you do?
So I finished my master's I actually defended on a Friday and it was frosh week. And like 5 minutes before I finished, they were all screaming and cheering. And I was like, I just took it to mean that it was for me. Woohoo, I'm almost done. And then my supervisor for my thesis came to me and he was like, hey, do you want to work as a research assistant in our institute? And it was an institute about environment and health, which is what we focused on in medical geography. So I actually looked at tuberculosis from a public health perspective in my local city. So, way back when, 1920s, 1930s. And that was it. I just fell into a job on Monday. That was September 10th, 2001. I remember it very well. And I was put down in public health because we had a partnership with our local public health. And of course, September 11th, 2001, it was crazy because planes were actually diverted to the city I live in, and it was just chaos with public health because they had to go out and inspect all of these sites for the hotels to be able to take all of these people in. So I ended up working there for in total 16 years. I did have 2 maternity leaves, but we did qualitative research on various aspects of environment and health, even looking at things like why people don't comply with public health suggestions about wearing sunscreen. Or we had an outbreak here in Ontario where I live of, of course, it just went out of my name. It's a mosquito-borne West Nile virus. Mm-hmm. And so public health was recommending people wear long sleeves and not to go out in the evenings when mosquitoes are really active. And they were struggling to find out why people are not complying. So what we did is went out and we did surveys, we did interviews to understand why people aren't compliant. And what you start realizing is there's many layers to compliance. Sometimes people really want to comply, but if they're a young parent or a single parent and they've got kids to look after and their immediate needs are much bigger than worrying about long sleeves in the evening, West Nile virus. And so that's how my background in medical geography and qualitative research methods have led to what I do today, because I just take all of those same skills and now apply it to B2B SaaS companies.
All right. So you ruined my jumping into this by saying, and this thing is so fascinating because you are so not doing that today. It is so completely, at least from the outside looking in, it's completely removed from anything you just described. But you ruined it for me because you jumped in and said, okay, that's the same skill set that I can use in such. So we'll get to that. That's fine. I guess 16 years in this, when was the point where you started to shift from, I guess this is more like academia, right? It's not, right? So when did you shift from academia into more of a business interest? What happened?
It was called layoff. Research. Okay. Yeah. So very common we were a research intensive university. And we also had, it was rated one of the world's top 100 universities for health sciences, of which we did a fair bit doing environment and health, but we were always competing for funding dollars. And what ended up happening was we had a change of government in the federal level. They cut back significant funding. So we used to get, 33% of our research projects funded, and then trickle down over 8 or 9 years. And suddenly we're down to less than 3%. So the institute couldn't function anymore like it used to. And I was laid off, and I didn't know what to do, because I always kind of felt like a square peg in a round hole when I was working at the university. And I always had a side hustle. I sold my friends honey. So I would drag these, kilos of one jar would be 1 kilo. So about 2.2 pounds. And I would, drag it to the office. My boss was totally okay with it. And I would just sell all this honey out of the office while I'd be working. And I realized that I really enjoyed business, but I knew nothing. So I came from a family like my mom stayed home. She raised us kids. My dad worked in a factory. Neither of them has education past grade 10. My father had his trade and his apprenticeship. My mom quit school in grade 10. She never went back. So I didn't know anything about business, but I knew I really enjoyed selling the honey, and I was good at it. And so that kind of whet my appetite when I was laid off to consider jumping into business.
Okay. So then what? I mean, the grass is greener on the other side. Selling honey for a friend, there's no pressure because it's their company and it's a side hustle for you, but you need a job and you need income. So what do you do?
So what I did is I searched for back then, so this is 6 or 7 years ago, it was the whole, crush your 9 to 5, leave your 9 to 5, something like that.
The 4-hour work week. Yeah.
Yeah. Essentially that concept was really big. So I came across this one company and I looked at their reviews. I was like, okay, this sounds good. And essentially it was a very expensive course. And I bought into it. And what we did was create websites and we would rank them on Google and then sell the leads to companies that were struggling to get on page one. I didn't know that what I was doing was rather questionable, but I started figuring it out. And I also, even though I was good at it and I was making money, I hated what I built. And so I decided after about 6-7 months to sell the business. I made a tiny profit on it and I got out of that. And then, there's a particular guru, I'll call him, who is very much into, create your own consulting business, make 7 figures in the next year, be rich, all of that.
We've all been there, done that. Got it. Yes.
Yeah, we all have. Doesn't matter how intelligent you are. I just parked that right on the
intelligence is not a prerequisite to getting scammed. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So I got into that. And you know what I ended up, which was awesome for me, was I got into Facebook ads. Back when we were still using Power Editor, there were, no limits on budgets. Like you could literally turn away and a couple hours later, your budget would just be blown. But it was exciting. Video ads were just coming out shortly after I created my agency. So it was like the Wild West and it was a lot of fun. I made a lot of money. I really enjoyed it. But then it got to be much.
So what you did was, because I'm trying to lay out the path towards how we get to today. So you created an agency. The agency was specifically for Facebook advertising.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And that's going well. And that now exposes you to a different type of quote unquote business. The good kind where you get to play with other people's money, right?
Absolutely.
All right. And then what?
Well, I learned all about marketing, obviously, because I really didn't know much about it. And so the agency really helped me learn about marketing and then also the type of marketing I wanted to do. So as Facebook, it was just crazy. I realized it was just too much pressure, but I started feeling inside that I didn't like tactical marketing and that I wanted to do something. And at that time, I ended up taking courses from 2 other gurus. I didn't realize they're all part of this affiliate marketing where they promote each other's program, part with, whatever, $10,000, $15,000 of my money. And I started realizing, wait a minute here. I don't like this. Like it really started to bother me because the sense I got is for the tactical part, they were thrilled and wined and dined me prior to becoming a customer. And then once I became a customer, I was pretty much just forgotten about. And that really bothered me. And that's when I decided Facebook, the algorithm was changing so rapidly. I just couldn't keep up. It felt like a toddler that I had to babysit all the time. And then coupled with the tactical approach. And then what I was seeing, how that tactical approach was really focused on short-term relationships versus building long-term relationships with customers. And I was like, you know what? I almost felt sick making this decision, but I knew it was right for me. Mm-hmm. I shut down the agency and everything to do with Facebook.
So, because I'm a marketing guy, so I read and check and go on webinars and listen to podcasts. I know all about those gurus. We probably ran into some of the same people. The mistake you made is, and that's a tip for my listeners, that if you ever wind up with one of these gurus, the webinar that promise you the world, because they'll teach you how, and they all have the same story. They quit college or school. They lived in their car. They ate from the garbage, and eventually, boom, they figured something out. And now they'll serve you their check that they make $1 million a month, and they can show you how to do it, right? So some of us, and I fell into some of these things, like all of us, just buy into this. Oh, if they could do it, I could do it, and it obviously doesn't work that way. But here's the tip: when you go on one of those webinars, when they do their shtick, where it's 15 minutes of content about what you clicked on to learn, the rest of it is self glorifying blah blah about how great they are and who they know, and then they get to, this is $10,000. It's almost like the 2 o'clock infomercials. But wait, since you're here, it's not 10,000, it's going to be $79.95. And if it's $79.95, guess what? If you sign up today, as in now, here's what else I'm going to throw in. And there's a whole scrolling list of garbage that they're going to add to you. But wait, there's more. If you're one of the first 30 people, it's not $79.95. It's actually going to be $49.95. And I've seen this go down to the $1,400, $1,500. It's pretty sad, actually, because they prey on people that are not professionals like you and me, although at the point you did it, early in my career, I was a newbie also. We get sucked into this make-believe world that you can just follow somebody else's templates and it'll be okay. And oh, by the way, you will have one of my coaches work with you, and I'll say it's nonsense. So you learned, and I guess I'm kind of interpreting what you just told me. Your own experience as a customer for one of these idiots who just took your money and ran, literally, kind of open your eyes to this must happen a lot. And so now Anita goes on a mission, right? So tell me what happens when you sit down and you say, okay, I'm closing my agency. I think this is what I want to do. So you get into the customer service piece of the business world. So what happens?
So I actually tried to run a digital marketing agency. I had to unlearn everything I had learned. So tactical marketing to long-term relationship building. And I went through a period where I decided to just more go into general digital marketing so that I could unlearn and then learn these new skills that are built on maintaining a long-term customer relationship. So I did that for about 8 months. It was a dismal failure. The business didn't go anywhere. And I've got to say, honestly, I knew it. I knew it deep down as I was I created a course and ran a beta group. And even in there, I knew like, A, my heart wasn't into it. And B, it just wasn't working. So I decided to close that, but sort of my finances helped me decide to close that business down.
But why wasn't it working? Why do you think it wasn't working?
I think for a couple of things. I was really struggling with the marketing side. My experience was so strong as a customer, and that really, those bad experiences really pushed me into closing what I was doing. And I realized that I don't really love marketing as much as I thought I did. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, well, what about going on the other side of the sale and working post-sale with customers? And once I made that decision, it was like, oh yeah, this is where I belong. It felt like, when you're driving on the highway and you get into a traffic jam and you're just barely moving, and then all of a sudden you get past the, accident or whatever was causing the jam, and the highway just opens up and you just feel like, woohoo. Like that's what it felt like. I felt like I finally found my place, and it was on the other side of the, customer line, if you will. So post sales.
So you find I don't want to use the word passion because I really don't like that word. It's so beat up, overused, but you find your calling. Okay. That's a good word for you, where I guess it was a good fit because you, again, like most great businesses or jobs, if it touches your own personal experience, then you're all in, right? When you're forced to do something, and I guess marketing wasn't for you. I've been doing it for 3.5 decades. So I love marketing. But again, there are parts of marketing that I absolutely hate. I don't choose to go play in that world. But so you find it. You find your calling. It's the customer side. But now you have to build a new business again, right? On a completely different platform, not platform, but a completely different goals and a mission for yourself. So now what do you do? Right now you have, so the toughest part is, because we're both mentors on Growth Mentor. We're both part of this amazing international mentoring platform. And, it's, I spoke to somebody yesterday from Romania. It was just amazing. There's people that we speak with. And I said to them, look, creating the business and putting a business plan and a marketing plan, all that stuff you do, it's fun, and playing on an Excel spreadsheet and changing the numbers, and you can make a lot of money on a spreadsheet because it works, right? But then when you log off and it's just you and you and you, there's one thing you need to do. You got to go find customers. So how does Anita go find customers after the shift?
I had been introduced to the concept of software as a service, SaaS companies, because a friend of mine was building an AI platform. And another friend of mine, so his focus is on surveys. My focus is on interviews, customer interviews. And we both come from academia. He has a PhD. I have a master's, and we partnered together, and we were going to build a SaaS on my friend's AI platform. And what this did is it got me learning about SaaS and churn. So why customers leave. And I was so fascinated with this that we beta tested. It didn't go anywhere. He wasn't excited about the product. I wasn't excited about the product, but boy, was I excited about this whole idea of churn, because I knew I had a skill set that could be tapped into to help companies understand why their customers go from being happy when they've purchased to being so unhappy that they leave.
So I want to pause for 1 second, Anita, because I know what you're talking about, the language that you speak and the vocabulary, but not all of our listeners are in the same spheres that we are. So we said SaaS stands for software as a service. Let's give some examples so somebody can tangibly relate to what does that mean. We're talking about either apps or a platform based on the web where you can access it and use it. It's web-based, right?
Right.
Pretty much.
So on the B2B side, you might be familiar with Slack, Dropbox, Zoom is actually a software as a service. On the sort of direct to consumer side, Netflix, anything that you either pay a monthly or annual fee for access to that service. Right. So Apple Music, Spotify, Netflix, all of those are also software as a service company. Right. So we're familiar with them. They're in our lives, and they're continuing to grow. A lot of companies are moving over to this subscription or software as a service model.
Right. And the one thing that's common in the SaaS universe, it always involves an exchange, right? So it's either a monthly subscription, an annual subscription, but there's always a subscription component in order to get value or to be able to use the service. Then you have to subscribe. You have to pay for it, right? So Apple Music, $10 a month, Amazon, whatever the story is. Okay, perfect. So you get into the SaaS universe, and your focus is on churn, which is another term that we want to explain. Plain language, churn means?
So it's actually a metric that's tracked. And in other areas, you might hear it called customer attrition. It's when a customer leaves. So when they stop paying. Someone who is on a free account is not a churned customer. So it's anyone who has paid and they stop paying. Right. That is a churned customer. And that is a metric that SaaS companies look at very closely, because when you're working month to month, The more customers that are leaving means that the business's profitability goes down, as does their ability to grow.
Right. And if I don't know if you like me, but I watch Shark Tank. I want the fourth and fifth reruns of Shark Tank because I learn from every single one, even if I know I watch it and I know they got or didn't get money, but I like the interaction because you learn a lot from it. And one of the things that's consistent in the tank, especially when people come in with subscription-based ideas or businesses, the first thing they ask, well, how many subscribers do you have? And what is your repeat or renewal rate? Right? Which directly correlate to what you're doing because it's just the opposite, right? How many people are leaving you? So you partner with this PhD gentleman and you guys, so what did you do? You developed an interviewing platform? Is that what it was?
It was more based on surveys, but similar. It was supposed to be a software as a service. And then, Qualtrics does it, Medallia does it. There's already large players, SurveyMonkey, Typeform. These are others. We wanted to bring our own particular spin to it, especially coming from academia. It just didn't work out. Like we weren't really interested. We were using it specifically for live events to get, this was pre-COVID because it was for live events that were in person to help the event organizers deal with issues as they came up versus waiting till after the event is over and finding out there was problems with this, there was problems with that. So we were developing it specifically for that. And it just, my heart wasn't into it. He was really passionate about it, but I wasn't. But this whole idea of helping companies understand why their customers leaving. Wow, that was it. Like I was just so excited. And that's what I've built this business on. And I continue to do today.
So I think we know what SaaS is. We know what churn is. You have a quote that I absolutely love, and I'm going to read it. Churn is like a divorce. Retention is like a marriage, right? So explain that.
And I'll even go one step before and say marketing and sales is like dating. So you have marketing and sales is like dating.
There was a reason I liked you when I saw your stuff is because up until last year, I was a marketing professor at a graduate school in New York. And I like to simplify things because I think way too many gurus and other people who really don't know as much try to overcomplicate marketing. But essentially, marketing is not that complicated. And so the easiest way I explain marketing to my clients, my students, anybody I speak with is exactly what you said. It's just like dating. And the dating aspect is not, moving in together, having whatever, and then getting married. It's the process, the relationship building, the engagement that leads you from a blind date to, that's interesting, maybe I'll meet him again, to something that comes later. And that's the way you do smart marketing, as I call it, right? Plenty of companies, thankfully, you and I guess, make a decent living by what we do. Many companies just skip the whole process and they think that just by throwing things on the wall, things are going to happen. So marketing and sales are like dating. And then at some point, you tie the knot, i.e., there's money that exchanges, and now you become a customer. So where's the problem?
Expectations.
From who?
From marketing and sales.
Okay.
And so the bigger the gap between the expectations that are set in marketing and sales around what the customer can achieve, what the process of being a customer is going to be like, and then just even the overall customer experience, which really does touch from marketing, all the way to when they decide to stop being a customer. The larger that gap in expectation, just like in a marriage, right? Whirlwind romance, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have this awesome life together. You get married. Like 2 weeks later, they're just sitting on the couch and nothing's happening. You stop and go, wait a minute. I thought this is what I was promised. This is what I thought it was going to be. And now this is reality. So when and it does happen as a customer, we've all had it happen. You go in, that was my experience with those two gurus, right? I listened to the pitches. I got really, they really got my emotions involved. Expectation. I was excited. This is going to be great. It's going to help solve my problems, whatever it may be. And then as soon as I became a customer, it was like night and day. And I was like, what? They don't even care. They're not even responding to, my outreach to support. Or when they do, I'm just getting back automated answers. It was horrific. So I realized, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm going to ask for a refund. And I did. And I stopped being a customer. And the worst part that many people don't think about is the negative word of mouth marketing that comes from those really bad customer experiences. Mm-hmm. It can be very damaging to a company.
So you said the first part of what you said was that they're the expectations from the sales or the marketing side, right? We know that there's expectations from as a customer, when we subscribe to something, when we buy something, we have certain expectations of what this product or service is going to deliver. Mostly it's based on either we know somebody that used it and recommended it, or we watched the commercials, or we did some research on the internet and was satisfied and we picked that. So that's okay. What is the issue with the expectations on the sales and market on the company side? Right? Because you said that there was a gap. Was
right.
it?
Let me see if I understand the question. Can you ask it? Can you ask it again?
Yeah. So I think you said there was a gap between expectations. So I'm interpreting it as a customer, when I buy something, I have expectations that something's going to work in a certain way. And often it doesn't, but often it's also because I'm not, either I don't know how to use it properly, or I haven't found the right way to navigate through it. And that's a question of training and time. Fine. But so is there a gap on the expectations from the company side in terms of when they release a software or a platform? Do they have too much expectations from the customers? I guess that's what the question I'm asking.
Yes, and they can. Absolutely, they can. So it's always expectations versus reality, right? That's the gap we're talking about. Companies, you see this a lot with startups, that they're so focused on their perspective that they forget to speak with their customers to see what it's like from the customer's perspective. So a feature will be released and a company will be, why aren't people using this? Like, it's great. It does this, it does that, blah, blah, blah. And they've put out some communications. But from the customer side, they're going, well, that feature now means 10 hours extra work a week for me to implement and change all my processes to make work. So they see that there's value, but the company never talked to them to find out, how does this feature impact what you're currently doing and impact what you're looking to achieve? Right. And that's why it's so critical to talk to customers, because if you're not talking with customers, and I mean like formal interviews, I'm not just talking chats and support or, reaching out once in a while off the cuff. I'm talking standardized, so you can compare the answers that you're getting and see the trends much faster. If you're not talking to your customers, then you're guessing, you're assuming, you're presuming what their perspective is. And then what companies do is base their expectations on what they inferred. Well, we haven't actually talked to our customers, but we think this is how they're going to react. We think this will be good for them. And so, yes, companies lay the expectations based on what I like to say, assume, presume, and guess.
So the issue here, because I spent years in the software industry, and now we're living in a universe of coding and technology, which is filled with people that code and do tech stuff. The problem here is the process, right? And the process is flawed, and you kind of alluded to it. If you take a bunch of programs, put them in a room and tell them to go program a new platform, they'll do it. But one thing I know about the techies is nothing is ever good enough. There's always a better way to do it. And so there's a 1.0 and a 2.0. It's not just chasing perfection, which is unrealistic, but it's just, I think it's innate in them to actually always want to improve something, which is fine. But the process, the flow in the process is that, like you said, the most successful companies started from someone who had experienced frustration or a problem doing something, decided to go fix it by creating a solution. And so that started from a customer perspective. And at some point, the company grows and they forget that the best ideas comes from the people that use it, not from the bunch of programmers sitting in a room and making it fancier or work much better. Not that some of the additional features are not necessary, but in my 30 years in the corporate world and my ability to grow multiple companies didn't come because I was smarter than anybody else. It came from spending 30% of my time on the road, working with sales teams, going on sales calls, going to conferences, trade shows, for the sake of speaking to our either customers or target customers. And all the greatest ideas we had came from those type of conversations. So you're right. It's a process flow where, I don't promote myself in these podcasts and I'm going to stick to it. But in a book that I released in August, there's a chapter on the biggest missed opportunities in any business of growth is the database of your existing customers because you're not talking to them. And the mantra that I've used for myself and all the teams I've trained, literally, I typed it, be the customer, and it was in front of them on the bottom of their screen. Always interact and act as a customer, not as an employee of a company. So, and it's exactly what you said. So, so let's say a SaaS platform, by the way, if they're growing nicely, they're unlikely paying attention to churn. But at some point, they're going to wake up when the growth stops and say, holy crap, what happened there? Right? So when you spot churn, what do you do? Do you tell them what to do, or it's up to them to then go do it?
So there's two ways that companies, they know that they have customers going out the back end, leaving like crazy. They know this in the beginning, but there's two problems, at least I see in the SaaS world. One is the heavy focus on revenue via acquisition versus revenue based on retention. So that's the side that I work on. This is for your customers, being able to upsell them into, higher price plans, being able to cross-sell them into other products, having renewals, referrals from them, and positive word of mouth marketing. So there's a real heavy focus on acquisition, and that's primarily driven by venture capitalists, investors coming in and wanting to see, how much can they grow, and they're willing to throw all sorts of money. It costs like 6 to 7 times more to acquire a new customer than to retain one that you already have. You've already done the heavy lifting by getting them as a customer. So there's either pressure, companies either are getting pressure from the board or their investors that this company is not growing as it should, because now churn is limiting their ability to grow. They're just now having to acquire so many more customers to replace the ones that have left. So that's really where they kind of decide, okay, we need to do something about this. My ideal clients are the ones that recognize early on that keeping customers, similar to what it was when I made the switch from tactical marketing and realizing, hey, I want to really focus on developing longer term relationships with customers, are the ones that recognize early on that they want to find out what's going on in their customers' minds, what their customers really think and feel about their company. The house is on fire, it's burning down, we've got to deal with churn. I hate to say it, but those companies really don't tend to listen to what you have to show them. Well,
I was just going to ask you because, most of these companies are still small businesses. They're not conglomerates. And one thing I've learned in my many years in the small business world, which was where I chose to play, this giant sandbox, I learned one thing, that entrepreneurs in general just don't want to hear bad news. They just don't want to hear it. So they either react in one or two ways. They will either dismiss it when you tell them that something is not right, or they'll make up an excuse, or they'll say, I know about it, it's not really such a big deal. So how do you find customers that listen?
I'm very fortunate in the SaaS world. There's a team called customer success. So this is different from customer support. Customer support is reactive. Customers are reaching out, they have a problem, you talk to support, and then the customer goes on their way and does whatever they need to do. Customer success is actually a team where you have a dedicated customer success manager. And there's different levels, right? From white glove, with big enterprise companies, all the way down to where you just speak with your customer success manager, maybe once a quarter. But it is a proactive approach to helping the customer be successful. So customer success is helping through the customer journey and understanding what are those major touch points where we need to reach out to customers and say, okay, at this point in the journey, we find most of our customers experience this. Here are some resources or tools to help you overcome this. And it's really helping in being successful. Because customer success is so focused on customers and their success, this particular team is very open, even though it's painful sometimes to hear where those, negative feedback comes in. They're much more open to listening and then acting on what they hear, which is the most important part.
Mm-hmm. So here's what, because we're on the same page, but I don't work with SaaS companies, but it's the same principle. What I tell my clients and what I tell business owners is that if you don't have a customer success mindset, or you're not staying engaged with your existing customers, not for the sake of upselling them, but just to show them that you just didn't take the money and run. You care and you want to make sure that they're okay, whatever it is, whatever product or service you deliver. But the thing that I tell them is a simple reality. You have to understand that when the customer leaves, it's too late. They left. Okay. Now, can you go? So that's my question to you. Customers are going to leave for different reasons. Let's say you did everything you could, but they still left. What do? Do you chase them back? How do you handle it?
Especially when dealing with small business, churn rates are higher for like right across the board. Doesn't matter if it's SaaS companies or not, because or if you're direct to consumer, businesses close, things change in people's lives where they're no longer interested. You're always going to have a small percentage of customers that you can't do anything about the reasons why they're leaving. There was a change in management and there's a different structure now. They're going, or different strategy. They're going a different way. Your software is no longer needed. Your product or service is no longer needed. You can't do anything about that. But 85% of the reasons why customers leave is in your control. Mm-hmm. And that is, we talked about that expectation reality gap. So I always suggest to everyone, whether you're just looking to get your first customer, you want to ask questions like, and why did you sign up with us? What were you looking to achieve? What happened? Did you achieve that? Did you not? How did it make you feel? What did you think when you were unable to achieve what you were hoping to achieve? You want to get into the thoughts and feelings, because the decision to leave is based on feelings. Mm-hmm. It is not a rational. People always think it's rational. Rational always comes second. We make decisions based on feelings. So I was really excited and happy when I signed up, as everyone is. I don't think anyone pays money to be disappointed or upset. So you got to try to understand, like, what happened. That's the story you're trying to find out. What happened to take them from being happy, being excited when they signed up and paid you money, to now that they're just wanting to leave. And I'm talking about that 85% where, is it your process? Is it your communications? Is your marketing off? Are they not ideal? Are they not the ideal fit for your company? Those are all the things that you want to start considering as the big customers are leaving.
So I think my audience are mostly business owners. And this is all fine. I mean, the message pretty clear, right? Whether you're a SaaS company or not, if you have a customer, make sure on doing the onboarding process that they bought something from you, talk to them, see if they need anything else, and then don't just disappear. We know what the right thing to do. It's not that complicated, but yet I don't know what the numbers are. I don't like to throw numbers around, but I would if I had to guess, I would say 90% of businesses consistently violate everything we just talked about. And there's a reason for it. For example, when I unsubscribe, which I do every day from something that I subscribe to, not necessarily paid stuff, they have the automation that says, "Oh, we're so sorry to hear you go. Can you tell me what was the issue?" Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I tell them why. I've never, ever heard back from anyone. Okay. So, and that leads me to, I know what the reason is. I'm not going to find it quickly, but you had a quote that was great. You'll remember it because it's your quote. But there's a reason why these things don't happen, and why this is a consistent failure for most businesses. And that's the 4-letter word. I'm not going to use the H word, but I'm going to say I dislike it immensely. And the 4-letter word is busy. The reason these things don't happen is because everybody is either pretending to be busy or convince themselves that they're busy, and they just don't pay attention to the critical parts of the business. Do you remember the quote? I mean, there was something on your stuff that said something to do with busy. You don't remember. You had some good stuff.
No, I don't. But am I allowed to swear, or are you going to beep it out?
No, I'm not that. No, go ahead. I love to swear.
Busy is bullshit.
Okay, that's not swearing.
Is bullshit.
You're allowed to say bullshit on TV, so that's not even swearing. Go ahead.
Good. Busy is bullshit. The reason why even big companies don't want to interview their customers is because as soon as you learn that this is the problem, and then the next customer says, this is the problem, then this is the problem, then this is, and it's the same problem, and you're hearing it over and over again. Now you have the responsibility to do something about it. So in staying ignorant, it makes it easier to stay in what? You talked about it earlier as well. There's safety in just, inferring, presuming, guessing, assuming. There's safety there. But as soon as now a customer refutes that, there's emotions that come up.
It was interesting. In my years in small business, I remember one company I spent a lot of time with, family-owned business, and a customer would call and complain. And we would share the complaint with the owners. And the owners would say, I didn't hear that many complaints like this. So they're the only ones that complain. What are you getting so excited about, right? And I said, my response to that today is, you need to understand there's some sort of a magic formula out there, and I don't know what the formula is, but I know the formula exists. That for every person that complains, there's something X of people that just said, you know what, screw you. I didn't get the service. You didn't pay attention to me. I don't feel respected. I don't feel appreciated. Oh, by the way, your product sucks. I'm gone. They're not going to take the time to complain. So Are you going to get a 1-star review on Yelp? Who cares, right? Are you going to get a bad testimonial? I have a problem with the whole testimonial universe, and something came out yesterday about this company that flooded Amazon with fake 5-star reviews. It literally is insane, right? That the ownership, business ownership, sort of likes to dismiss it. It's a lizard brain kind of thing, right? Your fight or flight old brain that says, this is a subject I'm really not comfortable with. It might also mean that something's not working well, but the rest of the stuff's working. So I'm just not gonna go there, right? Good news. Everybody always used to not yell at me, but say to me like, why do you bring up, as they're interpreted, bad stuff? Why can't you always be positive? And I said, I'm not bringing up bad stuff, but I'm bringing things that need to be addressed. I know you don't want to address them because the rest of the stuff looks okay, but it's those little things, like the customer satisfaction piece, are the things that start to cause cracks in the foundation. And at some point, it's going to catch up with you, right? One of my favorite quotes of all time: you can fool some of the people some of the time, all the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. It's just a question of time until this takes a life of its own. And like you said before, you don't know what they say to their friends, right? You don't know that. And that ideas spread, and so do stories about, just like when you get together with your neighbors and say, what do you feel like eating there? Italian. Well, don't go to that restaurant. I had a horrible experience, right? Same thing happens on a larger scale. There's one thing with SaaS that I personally experienced, and I actually got through to the ownership, and I screamed at the owner. I literally screamed at him because it was insane to me. And it kind of illustrates on what we talked about today. There was a deal on a software platform that I really liked. I bought it, and I completely forgot that I bought it. And I paid the annual subscription because it was a good value. And I forgot. Shame on me, I forgot. And then 3-4 months later, when I'm looking at either my expense sheet or something, I said, holy crap, I totally forgot. And it was $350, $400 a year, whatever it was, right? Not a fortune. And I reached out to them and I said, look, you know that I bought it. You know the first time I logged into it, to the platform. You also know how many more times I logged in after the first time. You have data that tells you whether I'm using your freaking the thing or not. And if you run a simple report that says, here's everybody that bought the software, the subscription, and here are all the people that never logged in, why wouldn't you reach out to me and say, is everything okay? Maybe there's a legitimate reason why I didn't log in. Typical answer: I got too busy, I forgot. Thank you for reminding me. Oh, by the way, it's been a while. If you want a one-on-one tutorial, let me give you a couple videos. Coach them and handhold them to go use it. And then the people that used it and stopped using it, you have the data. It's not complicated. Come back and say, why aren't you using it? Are you having difficulties? Maybe we'll have somebody help you out. This is the issue with subscription, because literally, once the sale is made, everybody moves on. Let's go find new people to do it. And they spend a small fortune on customer acquisition. And in some SaaS industries or platforms, the customer acquisition could be fairly expensive, right? So I think the message we have today is pay attention to your customers, not be the customer, think like a customer, reach out, engage them. The biggest goldmine for growth, from my experience in business all the years, has always been right under our feet in a database of existing customers. And I've never neglected them, and that's where we're able to grow. And there's another piece to it for people that are listening. Your existing customers are the last people to know how much more you do as a company. They just came to you and bought one thing because that's what they were interested in, but they're buying other things that potentially you can help them with. But you never took the time to say, hey, you're a customer. I see you're enjoying your thing. Oh, by the way, did you know? So customer service reps end the conversation all the time. It's a robotic thing, but they always end it with, okay, Anita, did I satisfy you today? Great. Can I help you with anything else? Well, I don't know at the moment if you can or not, but that's not the point. The point is, don't leave it there, right? Follow up and ask for it. So we're almost at the end. This was a lot of fun, Anita. Is there anything you're looking back at your journey, anything you regret that you would do different or better?
Oh, yeah, I have lots of regrets, certainly. But at the same time, if I hadn't gone through those experiences, I wouldn't have what I have today. I don't regret failing businesses. I've had two. One was a custom shoe printing business that we had. That was sort of again, a side hustle that, took on a life of its own, but I really realized how much I enjoy being in business. I don't regret those. What I regret is not trusting my gut sooner. Mm-hmm. That is the biggest regret. Knowing sometimes that I shouldn't be doing this, or I really should go do this. Kind of like we talked about, talking with customers. Everybody listening to this is going to know in their gut it's the right thing to do. But it's the story that I would tell myself, oh, I'm too busy, maybe later. Instead of going, wait a minute, I had to flip it around and say, I am not serving my customers the best way I can because I'm not listening to them. Not, I don't want to hear, which is focused on me, but that I'm robbing them of the opportunity to be successful. Mm-hmm. And that having that mindset flip is what really made the difference. So I don't have regrets over my career. I have things that I wish I hadn't have done. And now I try to look at those with that same sort of flip. Okay, I went and I did that. Am I going to do that in the future? Probably not. And it's mostly around those gurus and getting caught in that and all the money I spend. But also, if I hadn't have been treated the way I was, I likely wouldn't be on this path either. So sometimes you just have to really question why you're doing things. Mm-hmm. And can I look at it from a different perspective? And if you're hearing in your head a lot of I don't want to do this, or I don't like this, or I, then you already know the focus is the wrong way. You really need to say, what would this be like for my customers? What opportunities am I not giving my customers to be successful? Mm-hmm. Even asking that question and then seeing where that takes you. Maybe you're not ready to interview customers just yet, but start looking at just that little shift in perspective can start showing different areas in the customer journey or in your processes where you go, wow, we really made this challenging for them.
And it's really not complicated, right? It's I think it was Zig Ziglar that said, you can get everything in life you want if you help enough other people get what they want, right? If that's the mindset and the corporate culture of a business, then the transactional part of selling something it should be the start of a relationship, not the end of a relationship. And you also mentioned the word gut or intuition, topic for a completely different podcast. I could talk about that for a long time. Is it real? Does it exist? If you haven't, you probably did. Blink by Malcolm Gladwell talks about the whole concept. And in reality, it's not something that you're born with, but that gut instinct and that intuition is actually your brain doing AI super processing of multiple experiences you've had and tells you based on your experience of what you've seen, that's what you should do or do it. So yeah, I'm 98% gut driven. When the 2% fails me, it hurts, but I'm still following it. Anita, that was fun. Thank you for spending the time with me. I'm sure we'll run into each other on this amazing growth mentor platform. I dragged 40 into it. I'm actually interviewing him tomorrow. So we'll see what I can get him to say with that.
That's exciting. I had a great time with this as well. Can I just say, if anyone wants to learn a little more, I'm over on LinkedIn. Best place to find me. as well as anitatoth.ca, which is my website. And I do not gate my content. So if you're wanting to learn about how to do customer interviews or learning more even about churn itself, it's all ungated content. I have all the guides right there. Just go over and download what you need. And please use what you learn. Implement it into your business.
It's Anita, Anita, and her last name is T as in Tom, O, T as in Tom, H, Toth. Go on LinkedIn. You'll find her. I'm staring at her profile and all the great content that's there. It's been fun. We'll talk again soon. I appreciate it.
Sounds great. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneur Next Door podcast. If you want to connect with any of my guests or to be a guest on the show, please email me, zev@zevash.com. Thanks again, and here's to your success.